This is Bo, and welcome to Baguette Basics. In this series of videos, we'll cover all the necessary steps to create a classic French baguette right in your own kitchen. I consider this the foundational baguette from which you can build upon. In future videos, I'll cover variations to this baguette recipe where we introduce techniques such as cold fermentation and the use of other types of flour to alter the taste and texture. For the beginning, however, I recommend mastering the classic version covered in this video series before adding additional complexity. Congratulations on furthering your skills and taking on the challenge. In this series, we'll cover 1. Essential and non-essential equipment, as well as the ingredients needed to follow along. 2. Increasing the flavor of the baguette through the use of a pre-fermented mix known as a pouliche. 3. Mixing the dough to achieve good consistency. 4. Shaping the baguette, probably one of the most challenging parts of the process. And finally, 5. Steaming and baking. To be clear, baking baguettes is recommended for those of you who already have experience baking bread, as it expands upon many of the fundamental techniques. It can be a bit overwhelming for those of you who have not made bread before. By the way, for those of you interested in how to make a basic round French country loaf, also known as a boule, please click on the link to the right of the screen. That said, there will be those of you out there with no baking experience who still want to give baguettes a try. To that I say, go for it. The learning curve will be steep, but the experience will be priceless, and as long as you're trying and taking notes of your effort, you'll learn and improve. Also, please take a moment to subscribe. You'll help support my channel so I can bring more content like this to you, and leave a comment that you subscribed and I'll do my best to respond. So now if you're ready to get started, I'll see you in the next part. For the home baker, there is essential and non-essential equipment to consider. This topic is up for debate, so these are just my opinions. Essential equipment. First up is digital kitchen scale. Bakers rely on weight instead of volume when measuring ingredients. This allows you to easily scale a recipe up or down and gives the precision needed for consistent results. Measuring by volume, on the other hand, like with a cup for example, will yield different results every time based on a number of factors such as the force with which you scoop the flour to the way you level it. Also, flour can have different densities, especially if it's compacted or has been sitting for a while. In addition, flour can lose or gain moisture over time depending on how it's stored, and this all affects its weight. I've had this Escali Primo scale for over 10 years and it's worked great. Next up is a bench scraper. I primarily use the bench scraper to portion the dough for shaping and to maintain a clean working area. This tool is indispensable in terms of its versatility. You can use it to transport ingredients off of a cutting board, making pasta, cutting crust off of bread when making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. My daughter, she doesn't like the crust. This one by OXO has served me well for over a decade. Please be sure to check out the description for links to all of these products. If you click on them, you'll be seamlessly supporting my channel. Mixing bowl. Any mixing bowl that is at least 4 quarts in size will be fine. I currently use a 4-quart glass Pyrex bowl and find that the included lid is a great convenience. For those of you exploring sourdough breads, the glass bowl is great for tracking fermentation progress because you can see the bubbles develop through the glass. Silicone bowl scraper. This is a great tool for getting all the dough out of your mixing bowl, whether you are mixing by hand or by machine. I also use it quite often as a mixing utensil itself. There are many shapes available. I prefer this teardrop shape design for its versatility when it comes to bowl sizes. Baker's couche. This is a necessity for preparing baguettes during the final proofing stage. Some bakers will also use a couche to proof batards, although I prefer the convenience of a dedicated linen-lined proofing basket for that. You could probably get by with a towel, but a dedicated proofing cloth or couche is recommended. Couche is typically made out of linen and has a bit more rigidity than a kitchen towel. When using a couche for the first time, you have to season it well with flour to prevent the dough from sticking. Do not wash the couche. Shake off excess flour after use and then roll it up and store it in a dry location. Double-edged razor blades. This is used to score the dough prior to baking. Scoring allows the dough to rise in a predictable manner, and many bakers have turned scoring into an art form. For baguettes, you want to have a razor blade attached to a stick like a coffee stirrer or a piece of whittled down popsicle stick. Here I'm using a chopstick that I modified. This tool is also known as a bread lame and is often sold as a single unit, blade permanently attached to a handle. I do not recommend this because once the blade is dull, you have to throw the entire unit away. Buying a pack of individually wrapped razor blades is much more economical. Baking stone. A baking stone helps the dough dramatically rise during the beginning of the bake. It acts as a heat sink and helps with overall temperature stability when loading and unloading the oven. And it's great for other purposes such as making pizza. Since I was on a quest to bake full-size baguettes, I purchased 2 large stones and cut one down the size in order to completely fill one of my oven racks. I created a link for a 12 by 15 inch stone that I currently use as a backup. This should be plenty for most home bakers. Pan for steaming. Steaming is important for the first half of the bake because it allows for greater expansion of the dough prior to forming a crust. Steam also brings more of the sugars in the dough to the surface, which helps to get that crackling crust. Many people opt for a preheated cast iron pan to which they pour water into prior to baking. I find this method to be a little dangerous as the water reacts violently when coming in contact with a hot pan. I prefer to use a lightweight steaming pan to which I add cotton towels. Full details to come during the baking section of this video series. Pizza peel. For baguettes, I use a thin piece of plywood or a stiff piece of cardboard for loading. If you are handy, I recommend buying a thin piece of 2 by 4 foot birch plywood about 1/8 of an inch in thickness and cutting it down. You could go with a 1/4 inch thick plywood as well, but you'll have to taper the edge to ensure a smooth transfer of the dough to the baking stone. If you plan on making smaller baguettes, a pizza peel will work. Here is one of the wider ones I found on Amazon. And now on to non-essential equipment. Measuring cups and measuring spoons. These are nice to have around for other recipes, but for baking bread, a digital scale will replace all of these items. You just need a standard spoon to transfer the ingredients to the scale for weighing. Electric mixer. Although I own a KitchenAid mixer, I rarely use it for mixing dough, as I find that it does not handle large batches of dough too well. For the recipe covered in this video, the electric mixer will work just fine. Danish dough whisk. When I started baking bread, I was heavily dependent on one of these, but over time I started resorting to just my hands. That said, there may be times when you'd rather not get your hands dirty. For example, I sometimes like to play guitar while baking. The dough whisk keeps my fingers clean so I can play a few licks in between stages. Finally, let's cover the ingredients needed for this video. So for the pre-fermentation or poolish mixture, we're going to need the following: 225 grams of bread flour, 225 grams of water at room temperature, typically between 72 to 75 degrees. And last, 0.5 grams, about 1/8 of a teaspoon, of dry yeast. So again, that's for the pre-fermentation mixture, or the poolish. For the dough, we're going to need all of the poolish that we previously made, 450 grams of bread flour, 225 grams of water, again at room temperature, 72 to 75 degrees, 7 grams of dry yeast, and 14 grams of sea salt. In baker's percentages, this is a 66% hydration dough with 2% salt and 1.1% dry yeast. If you're finding value in this video, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a comment that you subscribed. I'll do my best to respond. And now that we have the overview, the equipment, and the ingredients out of the way, I'll see you in the next installment of this video series.